So this is the image that we're going to be producing today in this video tutorial, and it's of the She-Hulk. And this is a 1/6 scale TB League model I'm using with the 1/6 scale head sculpt. I got these boots, this holster, and these guns off of eBay, and we'll actually be creating her clothes with Photoshop. That's a technique I use fairly often in a lot of my photo manipulations. This car is just a 1/25 scale hot rod that I built and painted, but you could use any car that's just kind of a cool hot rod type car for this. The background is just a, city alley, has a little bit of a grunge to it. And so I'm going to be doing some fun lighting with this one, and as well as some interesting liquify techniques that I hope you'll be able to use in some of your future projects. So it should be a lot of fun. So let's get started. So this is our street, and obviously this is a daylight photograph, and we want to turn this into a nighttime photograph. But before I do that, I'm just going to make a copy, and then I'm going to come up here, make sure my top copy is selected. I'm going to go and I'm going to select color lookup. And this is one of my favorite ways of turning a day picture into a night picture, and that's by selecting this LUTs of moonlight. You see how that just automatically makes that look like it's an evening scene. I'm going to make this a layer mask by clicking Alt and then coming right in between those layers and clicking, and that makes it so this effect only affects this layer. So what I'm going to do with this layer is I'm going to use this layer to make light show up in this layer, and that'll make more sense in a minute. But what I need to do to accomplish that is I'm going to go up here to Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and I'm going to just increase that temperature up to 100%. So now what I can do to make that show up is on my layer mask here, just need to have a black brush. Want to make sure that it is very soft. And then as I hide this layer is going to, this mask. And then as I hide this layer, then this layer is going to show through. And this will make more sense here in just a sec. So I'm just masking that darker layer, making that bottom layer show through, and just notice how that creates this light effect. And the nice thing about it is because it's the exact duplicate, all of that detail is still there. It's just a brighter form of all of that detail. So we'll do all of these windows here and letting that light spill a little bit on purpose. And then we'll light up this lobby area here. And then there's a couple of places on this street that we can do that too. And so I'm doing click and then shift click, and that just draws a straight line. And that's a pretty easy way. So I did click, shift click, and just paint in here a little bit. Then I want to lighten up this doorway here, do a couple of lines here. Let's slide up that. And I'm using the bracket keys to make my brush shorter or smaller and larger. Let's go ahead and just make this look like this is lit up through here. We'll make this look like this is lights. And then let's go ahead and light up this doorway and this right here. Let's go ahead and do another one over here and here. Okay, so that gives it that kind of nice, now that we have lights, like the lights are on, and it's giving some light into this dark scene. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drop my opacity quite a bit, and I just want to do like some of this light is spilling out onto the sidewalks here. Just a little bit there, just to give that more realistic look, something like that. Okay, so that's basically it for our street, except one thing I want to do is we're going to have a car sitting here with the lights on. And so what I'd like to do is make this have kind of a darker to lighter look to it. So it's darker here, but then this section of the street is a lighter just because of the glow of the headlights. And I'm going to use layer styles to do that. So I'm going to double click on the layer, and I'm going to go to the gradient overlay. And that's going to make sure that this is this way. And you notice how that's darkened up the top and left the bottom lower, the lower part lighter. And we can adjust the scale here. And hit OK. And then you know what I want to do? I want to add a second color gradient overlay just to make that look even more dramatic. You can see what that does, that preview. That just makes that even more dramatic. Okay. And then I'm going to come up here because we've now darkened this up and I don't want it over all that dark. So for now, I'm going to drop this down to about 80. And this is now what that gradient effect gives us, is that darker to lighter area through here. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in our car. Okay, check the car. And then I'm going to come right here and add a layer. And this is going to be our car shadow. And I'm just going to go here. And if you hit D, it brings your foreground and background back to black and white. So I hit D. I want to come up here, get my opacity of about 50. Make sure I've got a real soft brush. And I'm just going to paint a shadow underneath this car here. So I'm just going to click and shift click, click and shift click. And then just add a couple of more little darker sections. Add the wheels, maybe bring that out just a bit. Yeah, something like that. Doesn't need to be too fancy of a shadow. Now I want to make the car green. So I'm going to do that by going to our adjustments and selecting a solid color, and the color I want is this color right here. Just looking at my notes. Is this color, and then we want to make the layer style to be green. So now what we're going to do is to easily get rid of this green except where I want it. I'm going to go to the car layer, I'm going to go to filter, or I'm going to go to select, and I'm going to select subject, and that should allow us to create a layer mask of the car. And that's done a really good job of doing that. So I'm going to go to select and select and mask. And then come down here and do layer mask. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the Alt button, and I'm going to drag that mask up to this layer so that the only place that's green is the car. Now with this mask, I'm going to erase the parts of this that I now also don't want to be green. So let's go up to 100% black. I want this to be now a hard brush, and I'm just going to erase this. And I'm using my shift click that I do some of the time here, and then just painting carefully with the brush otherwise. Erase this, erase this. Erase that off the wheels. And off the windshield. This is going to be hidden anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter as much. And off the lights. Sorry, I know this is just tedious to watch, so you can fast forward through this. Okay. So there we go. Now what I want to do is do a couple of techniques to turn the lights on. And so I'm going to add a layer. I'm going to call this light color. And I'm going to go over here. I'm going to pick kind of a yellowish orange color, something in that range. And then let's make sure I have a soft brush again. And then I'm just going to paint over these lights. And then I'm going to go here and do the layer style to linear dodge, and see how that brightens those up. And then I'm going to actually duplicate that just to give that a more dramatic effect. And then I'm just going to combine these layers. So I'm going to hit Control E, and that's just going to drop them down into being a single layer. And I'm just going to maybe paint a little bit more. just to kind of, it isn't doing what I wanted to do, so I'll stop doing that. Okay, so that's the first step we want to do with lighting our lights. And then this is another thing that I like to do, and that is use a lens flare. And you can typically find packs of these you can download for free. And I'm just going to drag these lens flares onto the area where the lights would be. Size them a little bit. And then we're going to go to layer style of screen, and then just going to center that a little better. And then I'm going to copy it. I'm going to hit Control T, and I'm going to bring it over to the other light. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to bring it over to this. And then one more time, I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to bring that over to here. And that really gives a really cool headlight effect. Now I also need to make it so this car looks like it is in, you know, the dark. And so I'm going to come back down to my car layer, and I am going to select again the color lookup, and I'm going to go to LUTs, and I'm going to do moonlight again. And then I'm going to make sure that that's a clipping mask so that it just is affecting the car layer. Now what I'm going to do is I want to kind of brighten up the front of this car a bit where those headlights will be glowing on it. So I want to reduce the effect of this color lookup. So I want to go to a soft brush. I want to lower this down quite dramatically, and then just kind of paint in a little bit to give that more bright effect, maybe here and here, just to brighten that up. Now I'm going to take my lens flares here, and I'm going to click, and then I'm going to shift click. That selects all of them, and then I'm going to go to Control G. I'm going to call this lens flares. And I'm going to create a mask, and I'm just going to mask a little bit the top and bottom of those lens flares, just to centralize those lights a little bit more. Okay, now we're going to add some headlight beams. So again, I'm going to add a layer. I'm going to call it light beam. And I'm going to hit P to select my pen tool, or it's right here. And I'm just going to create a path for the light. So I'm just clicking out here. Doesn't matter where I click here. Click a little more than across the center. Come back and click there. And then I'm going to hit shift click. That draws the path. Then I'm going to right click, and I'm going to hit fill path, and I want to fill it with white. I want to feather it by 50, and let's see what the opacity of 50 looks like here. So that looks really good. And then I'm going to right click, and I'm going to delete the path. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to create a new layer, call this light beam 2. Same thing, use my pen tool. I'm going to start here, go down to here, over to here, up to here, and here, and here. Then I'm going to Alt-click. Same thing, I'm going to right, and I'm going to do fill path. Same settings, and that creates a really nice headlight effect. So let's go ahead and delete the path. Okay, now what I'd like to do is kind of fade these out too, so they're more dramatic, closer, and then they fade as they come this way. So I'm going to do that by adding a layer mask. And then I'm going to come over here to the gradient tool. And this is the same selection where you also have the paint bucket tool. You probably don't use it a lot, so I just wanted to point that out. Make sure that it's set to this. And then all we're going to do is just pull that a little bit like that. And you can notice how it's darkened up the bottom of that mask. I just kind of faded that out. So we'll do the same thing up here. We're going to add the mask. And then we're just dragging that to kind of feather that light ray. And so that just gives a really nice overall effect for the car shadows, and have it sitting in this lit alleyway here. And that's a pretty dramatic lighting effect, I think, overall, between what we've done here with the buildings and the way we've lit this car up. So this is phase 1 of phase 2 for this project. And I'm actually going to stop here, and then I will create a part 2 where we add the She-Hulk to this image. So thanks for watching. I hope you've learned a few things that you can apply in your future photo manipulation work. Thanks a lot.